Booster Course Wave 3 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is here, and we're checking out all changes and differences made for the returning courses. The final race of the Moon Cup is 3DS Rainbow Road. It's a colorful journey through a space region inspired by our very own solar system, with planet replicas and the crater-filled surface of a moon. So how does the most recent update differ from past installments? Let's find out. Rainbow Road in Mario Kart 7 was one of the first courses to feature unique sections rather than laps, allowing for grand exploration. This exact design also was used as a traveling stage in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS. Since then, the track returned in Tour with an updated visual style and less extreme twists and elevations, but it remained true to its initial design for the most part. Based on the Tour version, the most recent update goes all out with a celestial luminescence and makes minor adjustments reminiscent of the original and includes anti-gravity on the lunar surface. Starting with the gameplay changes, the first dash panels on the segmented path were shortened and their platforms aligned for Tour. After the mushroom trampoline in that version, the road became wavy sooner, before the bin rather than after it. And once again for the Tour iteration, the barrier after the checkpoint switched from the right side of the bin to the left, extending to the glide ramp. However, this now doesn't quite reach the ramp. Once exploring Saturn's rings, drivers no longer can find item boxes under the second gap ever since their removal in Tour. Sad. Well, at least star rings were added along the path here for the update, even if they don't do much to affect the boosts. Descending to the moon, the entire area here has felt floaty, even in the original. For Tour, the craters were reshaped a bit, which could have affected both drivers and the chomps, and that could explain why they have been able to clear the jump over the holes, unlike before. Tour also made more item boxes available here, an addition that holds even now. But as we mentioned before, the update makes use of anti-gravity for this portion of the race, activated when falling from above rather than from an anti-gravity panel. However, since the only spin boosts come from other racers, the change doesn't seem very significant. Moving into the final section, the barrier to the right was cut off at the second launch star gate in Tour, ending at the first gate previously. This may be in part from minor gate position adjustments. These barriers were modified again for the update, leaving gaps at the start of the section and by the second launch star gate. The revolving tunnel ahead spun a bit faster in Tour, but it is slow like in 7 again. There were 6 star rings after the tunnel originally, but Tour removed the first one on the left. This number hasn't changed since, but the star rings have been arranged to appear more like they did for 3DS. 5 asteroids obstructed the flight here in the original, tumbling quickly. Ever since Tour, they increased to 8, but tumbled more slowly. The ramps below had both wide and narrow variations at first, but Tour made them consistently wide and adjusted their placements. Lastly, the aero barrier at the final bend was removed in Tour, keeping it simple. Oh right, there was a big jump shortcut here in 7 that may not be possible anymore. Too bad. There were more visual changes overall. Even the distant celestial bodies differed over the games. The lone nebula and sun were the only features in the backdrop other than the myriad stars, but Tour's makeover arranged these elements a bit, pushed the recolored sun further away, altered and duplicated the nebula to be seen in different spots, and added the famous Andromeda galaxy. For the Switch version, these reshuffled features were modified again and made more prominent, with the now Aqua Andromeda galaxy flipped horizontally. The polychromatic road that runs through the course had its rather artistic revisions too. For 3DS, the road color alignment shifted based on viewpoint as a form of iridescence, with many embossed stars on panels. The colors became more consistent in Tour, with the star pattern flattened and more spread out. Now the road is iridescent again, featuring no star patterns, but instead boasting a glowing trim and many stardust-like particles drifting along the rippled path. It's so crystalline. The starting sign first featured a gold frame on hovering metal bases with stripes and stars, and the classic logo displayed text with rainbow colors radiating outward. For Tour, this all was redesigned to feature pillars with cycling colors and gold caps connected by a rainbow arch, along with a simple aquatext logo with gold trim, and part of a launch star from Super Mario Galaxy crowning it all. The pillars have been removed entirely now, with the logo made reflective, and the rainbow ring being given a slightly different color mix. As for the starting line, we could see that the original featured cyan, magenta, yellow, and black checks, much like the CMYK color model printers. This was simplified to the black and white standard for Tour, contrasting with the colorful road. Now the checks have shades of blue, maybe to match the logo. The giant star decorations originally were simple gold stars, but Tour updated these to resemble silver launch stars. The facets were since smoothed out and metal dyed violet. In the 3DS version, barriers looked like elegant traditional fencing. Tour radically simplified this to being hollow stars with eyes, referencing the item. Now, the barriers consist of ornate energy stars like those in N64 Rainbow Road. all led up to a smaller moon initially, which was swapped with a scaled-down Uranus for Tour. In the latest version, Uranus was switched out in favor of Neptune, with its great dark spot seen from further away. Speaking of far away, the outside of the cylindrical tunnel later in the course has the stripes spiraling in reverse compared to Tour, just like the original, but more on that later. In the direction of the sun for Tour and Switch is the Earth, or a planetoid based on it. On the right is a Jupiter replica, but this was another moon in 7. The ramp style here and all others ahead were altered from a reddish type to the standard for Tour, with their arrow count being different now, at least in this spot. The only mushroom trampoline in the course is up ahead. Originally, small arrow barriers surrounded it, but since Tour, this type was changed to the standard. At the same time, orange spots were added to the mushroom cap, with others swapped. For 3DS, a checkpoint sign based on the starting gate had 2 rainbow cycling stars indicating the start of Section 2. Tour followed this technique by displaying the earlier pillars and rainbow arch, but had 3 gold stars, not matching the section number. The same applies now. At the turn was a red and white caution border inside the bend, which was removed for Tour, much like the 3 colorful arrows at the gliding section leading to the rings of the Saturn planetoid. Weird lighting differences aside, Saturn had various gray rings with red gap rims originally, but Tour adjusted the rings to be various browns, and now the surface is shiny with the gap rims changed to indigo. 2 new green arrows like in SNES Rainbow Road were added along Saturn's rings, and all around here are various small meteoroids floating and blazing about. This is also where we first encounter the star rings, which are designed like those in N64 Rainbow Road, featuring layered clockwise spinning fields cycling through light pastels and a different rim compared to the blue field Tour version that turned counterclockwise. They initially looked like launch stars. Under the dash panels in Tour were strange protrusions piercing through Saturn's rings. They have since been removed. The moon below was notably darker and grayer in Tour compared to the 3DS version, and all cosmetic craters were wiped away. Meanwhile, the large arrow barrier was turned into a glowing bar type, and the floating rainbow arrows were changed to green. These signs are just a bit further ahead now, and they tend to fade into view when approaching from certain angles. Oh, and the bar barrier is much more obviously animated now. The rocket style was revised in Tour, accompanied by toads. Now these toads are floating about in adorable astronaut suits. Oh, neat new glowing effect. Starting the final section, the checkpoint gate had 3 stars as expected, and the transition back to the road beneath it had depth between the bands. Tour naturally featured the same checkpoint gate as before, but the transition became flat and glowing. The conveyor belts were black with dot matrix rainbow arrows for 3DS, and cycling rainbow chevron in Tour, and the gold gates in the area became the launch star ornaments from before. Approaching the tunnel in the original, we can see that the thin gold ring around the entrance became thicker to match the launch star design in Tour, which is yellow now for some reason. Inside the tunnel, the stripes spiral around the star-studded white walls clockwise, the same direction as the physical rotation. These stripes are cyan, indigo, magenta, and an amber-green gradient in 7, with color bands breaking them at each dash panel ring. In Tour, the stripes lay undivided on a simple white tile wall, with green substituting the amber-green gradient. They all flowed in a counterclockwise pattern, revolving slower than the actual cylinder. Yellow replaced a blue in the Switch version, with all elements at the same speed again. Just outside, the asteroids had rounded shapes in the original, while Tour had more polygonal shapes with oddly simpler texturing. They look so much better now. The small moon near the end had numerous little craters in 7, but ever since Tour, there have been fewer, larger craters with raised rims. Finally, the left caution border at the last bend for 3DS was removed in Tour. Who knew there were so many little tweaks to find? As for auditory changes, the unique sound effects for conveyor belts only could be heard in the original, and the same applies to the barking from the chomps. Oh well. It's safe to say that the music had a lot of love put into it. The theme is much like you would expect from a Rainbow Road with its 1980s synth pop style, even borrowing phrases from N64 Rainbow Road like some others. There are different versions based on the area: normal when on the road, moon when on the lunar surface, and the final section variants. The normal version in the original had rhythm and instrumentation very similar to the classics. hopeful and nostalgic. Meanwhile, the Moon version in the original was subdued with no percussion, feeling almost tranquil, yet spacious. Spot on. The normal final section variant started with the N64 remix part of the composition, with the Moon final section variant heard only after backtracking. Other than that, they're just like before, only faster and higher pitched. All versions in Tour were basically the same. But before that, a medley played on the Rainbow Road stage in Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS, starting with this very theme, but with a nice disco flair in the shared N64 Rainbow Road reference. Groovy. In the latest version of the chorus, we can hear arrangements of all of the variants other than the final section on the Moon. The normal version has intensified percussion and unique drum fills with different falling synths. It's so good! The Moon version sounds much like the original, but it leans harder into the trance genre. Not bad. The final section variant approaches the normal composition very similarly to the original formula, and we wouldn't have it any other way. And that's about it for all changes we found in 3DS Rainbow Road. This course is a great addition to the new DLC, standing out from some other Rainbow Roads, at least for us. The anti-gravity isn't very helpful here, but the track is otherwise very refined. But what do you think? Have you found any notable changes that we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on Booster Course Wave 3 for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and other things Nintendo too. Thanks for watching. Until next time, ciao.